Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the weekly edition of the Grand Central Sports Hub, episode 12.5. I'm Jay-Z here in the I'm on the surface of the sun. I am on the surface of the sun, otherwise known as the great state of Texas this evening. Along with the show tonight, co-hosting Diamond Dan. How are you doing up north?
We're hanging in there. It's a little warm here and sticky, but some weird weather. But it's shaping up for a good weekend. We got a little bit of racing this weekend, a little bit of horse racing back in the great state of New York, and setting up for a big sports week. As at the end of next week, the English Premier League returns, and we have more options on our betting apps to that aren't like Korean ping pong that we can. Plug into. So looking forward to that.
And Seth Canner, as they say in the business, is on assignment tonight, and he'll return to the program next Thursday. So if you're a big fan of Seth, he will be back. He has not been removed from the show. He is the star of the show.
He is the show.
He will be back next week. So here we are on another Thursday evening, Dan, and quite honestly, from last week in the major sports, we don't have a lot of breaking revelations unless something breaks during the show like we had last week with baseball. But let's just recap real quick, as we like to do every Thursday. A couple of the hot items here with the NHL. They've agreed that formal training camps are open Friday, July 10th. Currently, the NHL this week began small player workouts. 6 players or less can be on the ice at a time. They've agreed to start formal on July 10th. The training camps will begin. They have yet to announce the hub cities to start the playoffs, and they have yet to announce when that's going to start. But it's some progress, right, Dan? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's positive. And you have some, encouraging signs in like New York, New Jersey, or I guess New Jersey, Pennsylvania, outside of New York City, really, where teams are saying that football, NFL, and NBA and NHL teams can practice at their own facilities. So that's good for, say, the Giants and the Jets, who have a practice facility right in their backyard. In East Rutherford, the Patriots do too here in New England, down in Foxborough. Other teams do travel. It's just too hot where they are. So that's positive. It's good news. I mean, I wouldn't read anything into it in terms of where we are. But it is encouraging, and it got me, our discussion last week about the NBA really got me excited about, the potential for kind of a shootout playoff, to sort of take the place of what we had, what we were missing with March Madness this year. And then, some of those events that were running up to that, conference tournaments and whatnot. So if the NBA can recreate that and do it in Florida, then by all means, I think they, at this rate, there's been every week, there seems to be more positivity, more development, and if these teams feel comfortable doing that and the players and the unions all agree, like in baseball, then great, then they should pursue it.
Real quick with hockey, it looks like they're trying to lean to one quarantine city in the U.S., and they're looking at possibly one in Canada. For the U.S., I've heard, believe it or not, Las Vegas supposedly has the best ice out of the U.S. hockey teams, which is crazy. And they are leading to Las Vegas, apparently, from one of the teams. A lot of gambling talk on today's show. So we're really, really excited about today's show. So to go on that, Las Vegas being possibly one of the teams there. So moving on to basketball, we know it's going to be in Orlando, and today they're saying July 30th for the start. We know where it's going to be. We know where it's set up. Basketball's ready to go, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, are they saying that for the start of training camps or the start of this shootout tournament?
Start of the season.
July. Yeah, I mean, that's great. I think if that's the case, I mean, you're seeing, like we've talked about NASCAR over the last couple of weeks, and they've started to dabble in the idea of bringing fans. Granted, they do it outdoors, obviously. But, the fact that you're talking about just over a month from now, having live professional basketball, that's great. And, if obviously the state of Florida will not oppose, any actions the NBA proposes, if I had to guess, because the state of Florida doesn't really turn down anything.
No, the state of Florida will probably allow full fans before everything is said and done. There'll be fans somewhere. I truly think there will be. If I was a betting man, and we all are, I'll say Florida is going to allow fans at some point during the playoffs. Moving real quick to baseball. As of Dan, there's nothing new here. Counter proposals going both ways, but we're still stuck at a stalemate. Last week I said about 20% chance of baseball. Have you changed your mind on this?
No, I have not, and I think the statements that Tony Clark has been putting out have been very negative. It's June 11th, right today. If you're talking about a shortened spring training, a full, some kind of an 80 some odd game season, 60 games, 75% pay. Players have been very outspoken on Twitter and elsewhere for that matter as it relates to coming back, and it's not positive. So you're bleeding into the summer. I think we should be, like I said last week, we should be at the quarter pole at this point for baseball, talking about division matchups, and we're still talking about whether or not the union can come to an agreement on pay. So it's going to be one of those things that I think we're going to have to just suck it up and say there's not going to be baseball this year. If there is, you're going to be playing into December, and like we said, at the outset of Grand Central Sports Hub, Christmas is the NBA's, Thanksgiving is football, and outside of all of this, I'm sure the NFL is watching NASCAR and other outdoor sports very closely to see what their capacity limits are, to see what they're able to do, to see how many season ticket holders they can bring in. Should a second wave not materialize in September, October, because you can bet your ass that the NFL wants to get a full season in.
And I think if all is said and done, now that I know Rob Manfred could demand a season at 50 games, something is going to happen with baseball. It may not be what we want. You mentioned NASCAR real quick. Rounding out our opening news today, there was another race last night, a midweek race. NASCAR's rating on the race in Martinsville, or Martin Truex winning, 104% over last year on the ratings overnight, which is absolutely – last year's comparative race was Dover, 104% better ratings. Of the weeknight races, the Wednesday night races, this one was 16% more than the last one. They may be hitting on weeknight races, Dan. Would you like to see more of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Martinsville Speedway in Virginia was the site for yesterday, the old paperclip. It was like the Wrigley Field of NASCAR. It was the first time they raced under the lights at Martinsville, I think, in the history of the racetrack. Prime time, no fans, obviously. And they've got a cornered market, and there's a point to be made about there being a lot of racing on television. Like NASCAR is stocked up with the traditional Sunday race, the Wednesday night race, the Xfinity race, which is like the AAA guys, where also the Cup Series guys can race, I think they're really, and now they're talking about, this is and now, not to bring in current events, but there were some aspects of that played into NASCAR's popularity yesterday, probably an increase in their ratings, Confederate flag stuff, not requiring drivers and personnel to stand during the anthem. There was a demonstration of sorts, if you will, over the weekend with an official. That draws eyeballs because that's part of, and I think it's the first time in a long time. And I love NASCAR. Don't get me wrong. Right. I love watching the races. My kids love it. My wife hates it, but whatever, she likes Jimmy Johnson. What can I say? This is the first time in a long time that NASCAR has sort of emerged in the national conversation. Yeah. So, having that and having that be a part of sort of the cultural scenario we're all living through, whether we like it or not, I think is drawing some attention to the sport. And if people tune in and watch the race, it's entertaining. It's not – Martinsville is not a racetrack. So you're building off of the attention you're getting sort of, from social issues. And Martinsville is not one of these racetracks you just – smash your foot down on the gas and drive around in circles. It requires, a little bit of tact, and there's actual, what you would say racing, right? So it's entertaining. It's something to watch. I think there's a lot of factors at play that is, NASCAR made the right. I've never throughout the course of this, said that NASCAR came back too soon. They've got drivers wearing masks and, the Fox broadcasters wearing masks and using the little stick to interview people from 6-7 feet away.
They've innovated. They've tried to make it safe, and they're in the spotlight. They've done a good job embracing the spotlight here, especially over the last couple of weeks, and they've hit the news cycle, and most of it's been very positive.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first time since I've had an iPhone, which has been not as long as most people, but it was the first time that in like news pop-ups, the word NASCAR was used because it said, NASCAR does this or NASCAR does that. It's like there's just nothing else out there right now, and you can bet that this is going to be something that this is like Roger Goodell's worst nightmare right now, is to seeing how well and tactful NASCAR is playing this, and that the NFL is going to have a serious issue because that season is coming up faster than you think.
So that's your kind of daily recap here. If there's any breaking news with baseball or anything, we'll do what we did last week and pivot toward it. But Dan, you've sourced a special guest for this afternoon. This is a gambling show of sorts. This is going to be all about sports gambling, Vegas. It's going to be a fun show. We have Mr. Soriano making his debut later to talk about Vegas in the COVID age and some other stuff too. But Dan, you sourced our main guest today, so why don't we go ahead and bring Steve Conway in here? And what do you got to say, Dan?
Well, Steve, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here. I've known Steve for a couple of years now. He's a proud graduate of the great Stonehill College in northeastern Massachusetts, much as myself.
That's right.
Where I came to know him, and since then has gone on to. He graduated in 2017, which we were saying before the show. I've got kids that are older than your degree, but since then you've sort of made your way through broadcasting. So, and now I've ended up on ESPN's Daily Wager program, which is currently on a bit of hiatus, as is the rest of America. So, welcome to the show, Stevie.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right. So, why don't you give us a little bit of background on that? How you got into broadcasting? Since you're, for most of us, a recent college graduate.
Sure. Yeah, I think kind of from high school, I really realized that I wanted to go into broadcasting and production. I was always enamored with media and TV, and I was always fixated on ESPN, MSG. I'm a Knick fan, suffering Knick Met Jet fan.
Oh, you too. Oh, boy.
So you just got to embrace it at this point. But MSG, SNY, I was enamored with media, personalities, kind of how they operated, how they carried themselves. And I knew that I wanted to work in production in some form. So I went to Stonehill, majored in communications, media communications, double minor in journalism and political science. So new journalism, new production, had interest in politics as well. Played sports at Stonehill and also played two sports in graduate school. So sports were a big part of my life. I interned at MSNBC, ABC, and the ABC affiliate in Connecticut. A couple campaign internships and political internships, but ultimately decided that sports was going to be the avenue, at least for now. So I started with ESPN this past August, and that was the 5th time that I interviewed for ESPN since my 4 years in college. So the fifth time's the charm, I guess. But that's how I ended up at ESPN.
Good for you for not giving up. I gotta say, you know what? You've got to keep knocking the door down. So tell us about this what you ended up doing.
Yeah. So listen, I mean, I'll be the first one to say I really lucked out. I applied for this position, which was known as they call it a recurring position. It's basically a temp contract for 8 months, and I applied for it. Went through 3 or 4 rounds of interviews. Finally got the job, and over the summer, it was basically known that I would be a production assistant working on SportsCenter, mostly doing highlights, particularly in college football, which I thought would be awesome, just like any other young sports fan. So about a week before my start date, which is August 5th, they sent out a questionnaire and listed a whole bunch of sports, a whole bunch of different questions and scenarios, and you basically had to respond to them. So I sent it. So first day comes, I dress up, all excited. We get into this big room, take our picture for a badge, the whole thing, and then within the first 5 minutes of our interview with all the new employees, I get called out into the hallway. And I'm going, what the heck is going on? I mean, I just started here. Am I in trouble? Is there something wrong with my picture? Was there a misunderstanding? What have you? And it was a guy named Jeff McGuire, who's the manager, or my manager, excuse me, now. And he basically said, hey, listen, we saw that you have an interest in sports betting and you have some knowledge in gambling. We have a relatively new show, which is Daily Wager, which I had heard of prior. And they said, we have an opening, that we could really use somebody, and would you be interested in hopping on a show staff? And I said, hell yeah, absolutely. So that's really what it was. I mean, it was as simple as checking off a box, saying that I knew a decent amount about sports betting and sports gambling. And that's what's interesting. I thought I knew a decent amount until I started working on the show. And then my knowledge, for better or for worse, just skyrocketed. So I, luck of the draw, lucked out, but I think I've really been able to make the most of it.
So when you went into that meeting and you filled out the questionnaire, how many new hires or new associates were in that room with you?
So there were 9 that were starting in the exact same position that I was, which was like I said, the recurring kind of temp 8-month contract. So 9 in total. The 8 went on to that role, which like I said, Sports Center highlights, mostly college football. Then that would transition to NBA and the MLB. And I was the lucky one who was able to be assigned to a show staff right away.
So this was August of last year, so 2019, right?
Correct. Yep.
Do you think you were the only one at that time? Because sports gambling is sort of blown up, right, over the last 18 months. Do you think you were the only one out of that group that put down that you knew anything about sports betting?
That's a good question. Being in that room on day one, I would probably think that I would be the only one that would have known a decent amount about sports betting. I don't know if it was just the fact that I volunteered it. Maybe some kind of saw it as, maybe a little taboo.
Yeah.
But I wasn't an avid gambler at the time, nor do I really, I like to dabble here and there.
Me neither.
Yeah, we're not avid. We just sometimes.
I don't find excuses to go to New Hampshire.
Right.
I didn't just have the MGM app on my phone.
Yeah, exactly. I was hitting up Naira earlier today, and Dan, I can't wait I can't wait for this weekend too.
I know.
So anyway, I knew about Daily Wager because it started last March. So we were talking off air. So we just came around their 1-year anniversary. So I knew about Daily Wager, and honestly, I kind of thought that had I checked the yes, maybe eventually that would lead to a position on Daily Wager, but I never would have thought that it would lead to working on the show staff day one.
Sure. It's interesting that, maybe at that time, even less than a year ago, right, that maybe people thought it was if you were a compulsive gambler or some sort of degenerate, that it had a negative connotation.
Right.
Obviously, if you're going to work at ESPN, that what the show's roster, or rather what the network's roster is. But I'm curious. So, all right, so you get pulled out of that room, and then you get put on the show, and then you said earlier that you thought you knew a lot about sports betting. So, what was the learning curve like when you first began on the program?
Just a lot of the terminology. Again, I thought I knew the basics, talking with friends and kind of dabbling myself, but the day-to-day terminology, it was like a foreign language, and I found myself having to ask coworkers, what does this mean? What does that mean? So I guess the jargon was certainly a learning curve to begin. Mm-hmm. I would say other sports and how other sports are bet, not just strategically, but just, generally speaking, run lines and things like that. I was basically a money line, basic gambler prior. So, I didn't know a whole lot of, I knew props existed, but I didn't know the extent to which they existed. Mm-hmm. Several different cases where I had to kind of learn on the fly. But I think that's sometimes the best way to learn.
Sure.
I think we've realized speaking of props, sorry, Dan, if someone wants to put money on something, they'll come up with a line. I mean, it's like if you I think that's one of the things you probably took away from it. It's like if you want to bet on the national anthem, you can bet on the national anthem, right? I mean,
yeah, and I'm sure we'll get to this later, but there were certain things where we didn't touch. I had zero input in it, but for whatever reason, the higher powers that be. So we had a fun prop sheet that we did at the Super Bowl, or for the Super Bowl. But we couldn't really do too much of those fun props, commercials and national anthem and some of those that you see on offshore books. I'm sure we'll get to this later, but we partnered with Caesar's Palace. That was the partnership that ESPN put together in the beginning of all of this. So we went with Caesar. So all the lines that ESPN shows are directly from Caesar Sportsbook.
Yeah, that was my next question, because when you're ESPN and you're not, a regional sports network, or you're not, like a one-off, like what is it, the Sports and Information Network kind of thing, and that's a little more proprietary on Sirius XM. You're ESPN, right? So there's sort of a I've read the books, I understand, there's sort of a prestige, if you will, that goes with that, being the worldwide leader in sports. So then again, ESPN does monetize everything from hot seats to bulletin boards or whatever it is. So I'm not surprised that ESPN would partner with a sports book, if you will. But I mean, you have to kind of get it right at the same time. So,
right.
Because the Westgate, differs sometimes from Caesars, differs from Mandalay, et cetera, right?
Yeah, we primarily use Caesar's lines, and there were certain cases where Caesar's didn't offer a line, didn't offer a prop that an analyst would come on, and that's what they would be on. So we referenced that. Caesar's doesn't have this line, but at Westgate it's this, and at DraftKings it's this, FanDuel, etc. So we would certainly reference other sports books, and would sometimes take the line, but it was very forthcoming. Caesars doesn't have it, but at DraftKings it's this, and this is what I would play.
Right, and then you've got, so if you take sports gambling really kind of blew up when states started legalizing it and then down selecting providers, right, or app providers. Right. So you've got New Jersey, with FanDuel, I think, and New Hampshire FanDuel, and DC, New York will follow at some point. So I feel like if the majority of your viewers are watching or are using a certain app or going to the sports book at the Meadowlands or whatever it may be, and then those odds that you're presenting differ, that might put you in presenting, whatever, or as a presenter, in a hard position.
Yeah, it's it was kind of the difficult kind of thing that we had to navigate, because some lines would offer this, some lines would offer that. There were props. The other thing too is that we had a ton of different analysts that would come on, and some that were specific to Daily Wager show staff, and then also we had Ryan Clark, former Steelers safety. He was on Mondays. He didn't really know a ton about sports betting, but he would offer his insight and analysis. And then the next segment would be, all right, based on what Ryan said, so and so, what would you play this week? But again, those lines were constantly moving. People were and it would come up on the show and on the show meetings. This so and so has this line. We should use this, and then we got to see what line can we use, and this is offered offshore. So there are a ton of discussions about it. So it was a little bit tricky, but I think for the most part we handled it pretty well. Mm-hmm.
So I think their ESPN, by even beginning this venture, knows there's a thirst for this, and if there is money to be spent, there's money to be had, right? So as you were there, was there a feeling or was there a vibe that this was just the beginning for something that they would like to expand upon and make sports betting lines more prevalent in their broadcasting and coverage?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think if you if you kind of look, I don't know if you've ever watched ESPN News, and they kind of have, I'm kind of forgetting, this is bad, blanking on the production term, but they kind of have an outline. It's like an L shape. But they're constantly turning lines over for maybe not right now, but when things are normal, you could be watching a program. Oftentimes it's a rerun on ESPN News. So it's a rerun of First Take, you can watch First Take, and on the left hand side, it's like a bottom line of different lines and on NFL championship odds to win the Super Bowl and things like that. So constantly evolving. On the bottom line, they'll show lines and the favorites for NFL games and NBA games, things like that. They also partnered and did televise some of the XFL games, and that was a huge point of emphasis when the XFL started. We had a meeting about it. The commissioner, Oliver Luck, was on campus. Conducting meetings and talking about XFL and how we kind of really wanted to embrace gambling. And we covered XFL up until, it got canceled and our show kind of was off the air indefinitely as well. So definitely started to embrace, and also kind of unfortunate timing, but we were building a studio in Caesar's Palace.
No kidding.
And the show was supposed to go there.
No kidding.
And unfortunately that was put on hold.
I think this shows they're in on it. ESPN is in on it. I think that's huge.
I think so. And that partnership and kind of the willingness to go out to Vegas and put up a studio and kind of relocate. Now I wouldn't be going there, but the host and maybe I can weasel my way in for a weekend trip or something. But truthfully, it was going to be a big opportunity for us because the draft was going to be there. A lot of things were kind of lined up. We did a ton of draft props, which are pretty fun to discuss. So. To go back to your original question, I think they are definitely embracing gambling. And we were kind of in that trajectory, and then this kind of stunted it. But hopefully, they can get back on track once things return to normal.
Well, like you referenced earlier, the NYRA app, the New York Racing Association app. Yeah. Now there's apps all over, Jason's MGM. We've got, DraftKings here close to New Hampshire. Don't you think that once sports do come back, whether they're limited or not, we've talked on this show about, the prospects for the NBA and NHL coming back. We just referenced it at the beginning of this show. Don't you think that as soon as that, those players go back to training camp, that ESPN will be right on it and go right back to building that studio?
I would think so. I don't know the financial ramifications as far as, if it set them back or where was construction delayed. I just know based on conversations that it seemed promising that we were going to be able to be there for the draft and moving forward.
Well, it'll be back there in 2 years, right? So,
Yeah. So hopefully we're still in the air and things are going strong. But yeah, I think that's the case. Once things come up and get up and running, they'll try to jump on it, and you see that a lot of places aren't stopping. People are betting on Korean baseball. And,
the table tennis has a spot. I have it on the scroll. I grabbed it off the MGM app. The table tennis has odds. Come on.
There is odds for everything and anything. And I have some friends that, for the sake of themselves, I won't mention on air, but they're texting me in the morning and I've never heard of these sports and never heard of these countries. It's ridiculous that they're trying to find. So, it's funny to talk about, but it is so huge and there's money being bet and it's growing. So I think it would just be, behoove ESPN and others to kind of get back on the train as soon as possible.
So nothing makes you feel better about a pandemic than betting. By the way, you can bet on darts.
Yep. Yeah.
Darts.
Well, it's an interesting point you make, that everybody's kind of getting on board, Barstool's making T-shirts, everybody's,
right.
kind of into the betting scene now, right? And you can't put a guest comments up there. He's going to be on later.
I know, but he's dropping it early with the Matt Harvey loves Korean baseball. Matt Harvey.
He likes a lot of Korean things, I'm sure. But yeah, back to the question I guess I have is that, if internally on, like you say, on campus, right, at ESPN, like, do you think that people like hardcore gamblers, do they think that ESPN sort of, glosses over real gambling, like real, quote unquote, real gambling, or that, it's just made for production or for making money, partnering with Caesars, that kind of thing? Like, how does ESPN go about creating an authentic, if you will, experience?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and kind of to your point earlier about ESPN being the worldwide leader and kind of, for a while, not putting words in their mouth, but, we can all kind of assume, it's taboo. Should this be a space that we want to get into? You have the Disney tie to it as well. So, it is tricky to navigate. It's kind of tough to and you want to do it the right way, basically. I would say that folks at ESPN definitely embraced it, and they really put a huge emphasis. I mean, I remember in my orientation over the summer, this was a couple weeks prior to my start date. Daily Wager was a point of emphasis, and how brand new show, ESPN starting to embrace gambling and things of that nature. So I think it's evolving. I'm not too sure if I know they have a plan, but I think it all kind of depends on reacting to what others are doing. And kind of, it's much like the situation we all find ourselves in right now. It's fluid. So I think it's fluid, and it's kind of reactive. And who's to say whether they kind of came in late to the ball game, or maybe they were early and doing it the right way. I don't know.
I have a great idea though. You mentioned Disney. They should go in on it too. Like the over under on how long the line for the Magic Mountain ride is, right? It could be like plus 1,000 that it's less than 3 hours, right? How many kids cry on this ride? 15 or 50? And like, like they could totally. I would be in on it. I'd be like $50 on the line being more than 3 hours. Like,
well, I'll tell you what, that's a good idea, because if you get kiosks at Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom,
the problem is you're already in more than you're willing to gamble when you're there. You're like, how I know.
Listen, you're miserable already. Right, you're miserable already. The parents have nothing to do. They're like, "Well, let me throw $20. At least I'll make some money."
Right? No,
you're flocking.
To go there, like Disney's already in your pocket. You don't need to give the mouse any more money. Or you're like, "Damn it!" You get back to your room at the end of the night. Your kids are crying. The last thing you need is $200 on the Phoenix Coyotes.
Listen, everyone's got to reinvent their business after COVID, and we're going to talk about Vegas with Mr. Soriano in a little bit. Disney has to reinvent their business. They need ancillary income. The adults will bet on Disney.
Well, I mean, so getting back on point, I guess. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
It'll be a good experiment.
Well, I think as you try to kind of balance the new normal,
I was just gonna, it would be.
Go ahead.
You go ahead. I think we're on a delay here.
Oh, it's that Connecticut internet. I don't know, man.
Give me your question.
Oh, I was gonna, get back to a new normal here and everything. How does, how does, I guess, a large conglomerate like that, kind of reassess? And, if again, Dad's already in enough when it gets to Disney, but I think there's definitely a demand. So, how do you? And I would think that as soon as possible, ESPN would be back at it, right?
Yeah, I would think so. It all depends. If we can come to agreement and have some baseball. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, I mean, we need to be able to bet on something first, other than Korean baseball and all that nonsense. So I don't even think Caesars would have lines, or maybe they do. I don't know. I haven't checked, but I know that, once the NBA starts back up, the NFL, shortly after that. Hopefully, we have baseball, I know MLS and NASCAR.
Premier League.
So Premier League, EPL will start. I know you mentioned that next week, I believe, right? So, and we do a decent amount of that on the show. It all depends. I mean, I think we still could have held, maybe not the initial couple weeks, but we could have held a 30-minute show today. Talking props. I mean, you could really string together a show, and reassess. It would be difficult. I mean, it would be much easier if there were games running and lines were evolving as teams are winning and losing and that sort of thing. But I think there's always going to be a market and a desire to talk about gambling and the markets and how they fluctuate.
Right. So since you filled out your questionnaire back at ESPN, that you're Bristol and you are a sports gambler and you know a little bit about it. What's your preference when it comes to sports gambling?
Well, as much as I played soccer and baseball in college. I was actually on the Stonehill Women's. I don't know if you even know this, Dan. I was on the Stonehill Women's basketball practice squad. So I played against the women who were no joke. They I mean, the 4 years that I was there, they made it to the Elite Eight, I think, twice for Division II. And I've been fortunate enough to have season tickets with my family, or fortunate, unfortunate, to the Jets since I was born. The previous 2 years, I threw the T-shirts onto the field, and I did a little bit of media operations, game day operations for them as well, going into the stands and showing fans.
For the Jets, you're saying? For
the Jets, yeah. So I would throw the T-shirts on the field, which is kind of like a fun thing to do. But then I would go up into the stands, travel with the camera crew, and it would be a situation like, oh, those 10 fans are, they're all wearing Jet stuff. They have cute kids. Let's show them 10 seconds on the big screen, stuff like that. So it was pretty cool, starting a media tie. And then I've been going to games. Like I said, we've been fortunate to have season tickets since I was 8. So, with all of that said, how much I love everything. Without a doubt, my favorite is horse racing. Without a doubt. I mean, I was just thinking about this. If you gave me a choice between going to the Meadowlands and hanging out at the FanDuel Sportsbook, in September when football is going on, baseball, right now, the Masters is in September, right?
Right.
So that or a day at the track at Belmont or Saratoga. I love Saratoga. I mean, I'm really hoping that I can get there this summer. But horse racing, I've learned a lot about it. I've always had an affinity for horses in general. I have a cousin that is a part owner of 2 horses, so. Just really, I mean, Naira Bets is on my home screen. It's the first or second app. So.
Me too. And I mean, this isn't an advertisement for Naira Bets or anything, but the ease with which they've made it, and it is legal in 26 states across the United States. Including Massachusetts, which is funny because you can't even get beer delivered to the state from out of state. I guess it was a preemptive strike against New Hampshire before they started, their sports betting far in advance of Massachusetts. But nothing beats a Saturday at the spa, right? I mean, beautiful. Even if it's raining, you're sitting out in the back, you're by the paddock, there's just something about that.
You got your form, and I don't smoke, but the smell of cigar. Every time I walk by somebody smoking a cigar,
you don't smoke. You're into horses. You're into horses, and you don't smoke.
I got a little a prop for pictures that we take, but after that,
he's young still.
How many fedoras do you own?
I have 3.
There you go.
That's awesome.
several colored pants. So it's a great place. And even if you don't like horse racing, it's a beautiful town. A lot of great bars and restaurants. I actually last summer, real quick story. I think I might have told you this, Dan, but we were out. We were there for 3 days. Last night we were out. We were down that one street. I forget what street.
Caroline Street.
Caroline Street. And we're hanging out. Music's going, and a bunch of these really short guys walk in, and I'm talking to my friends like, oh, maybe they're exercise riders or something. It was Junior Alvarado. It was Junior Alvarado's dad, Joel Rosario. It was the jockey. So we weaseled our way into talking, and they're probably like, this guy just disinterested or whatever. But it's a cool place to be, and it's kind of much like if you're going to a baseball town and you meet kind of players out, just so happen to meet players out. So It is cool. It's a great place to be, but horse racing definitely is my number one.
Sure. And where else can you gamble 14 times in a day, on a multitude of combinations and exotics, and it's in the New York.
Oh, I lost you guys.
No, we got you on audio.
Yeah, your audio's still coming across.
You're gonna have to call your internet provider.
Upgrade that Wi-Fi.
Hello.
we hear you. We hear you. You're there?
I like this sort of like robotic.
I know it's like a Matrix thing.
See, maybe Josh may have lost the FCC. Maybe watching this.
I know. Because Josh said the FCC is watching the show. So.
No, never forget the NSA is the only government agency that listens.
So what I think we could do.
Okay, now
I think we're good. I think we can use this could be fun. We could have gambling. There's never enough gambling segments on our show, and we'd be glad to have you back when sports gets going, so we can have some actual games to talk about if you're up for it. So, thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on tonight, Steve, and thanks Dan for getting you on.
Yeah, I mean it's insightful. I think a lot of people have read a lot of things and heard a lot of things about what the campus is like in Bristol. And to have your perspective as sort of a up and comer, young and hungry, and an interest in it. It's not just like I want to be a broadcaster and I want to be on air. I want to be the guy. I want to be the next Stuart Scott, whatever it is. You're into the semantics of the building and how the business of sports rotates around this new demand for sports gambling and sports gambling advice. So. We appreciate you taking the time here on whatever day today is, and coming out, to educate us a little bit.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I might be texting you over the weekend for some picks at Belmont.
Yeah, and ping pong and darts.
Yeah,
we'll see. I'll let you give me the expertise on that one, but we'll do the horse picks. But no, thank you. It was fun. Definitely, would love to be back.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
You got it. Take care. Thanks.
Dan, good insight there from Steve. Anyone who's worked at ESPN, it's got to be a heck of an experience, right? We can only imagine in our shoes. It seems like the holy grail, right? It is.
Well, I mean, it's what everyone in the country, whether they're a sports nut or not, they just sort of default to ESPN, and it's in a tiny little town in Connecticut that's sort of ensconced away from New York. A lot of talent lives in New York City. It draws on personalities and whatnot, but I don't think a whole lot of people really understand what goes on behind the curtain up there. And getting like I said, a young, hungry kind of up and comer, on the show who understands how this business of sports gambling and business works. And he's a Stonehill grad to boot, and he's got a bright future ahead of him. Regardless of what happens with whatever it is, daily wager, I think it's interesting because I've read the books. Everybody, I took a lot of flights to get through. What is it? The guys have all the fun, whatever it is, that 900-page book about ESPN, and sometimes ESPN doesn't have the best reputation when it comes to personal relationships or how the business started. But then you think about the people that work there, like the Chris Bermans, and the that have been there for a long time, and the Barry Melroses who keep coming back. Like Steve Levy owned a minor league, or was a co-owner with Barry Melrose of a minor league hockey team in Glens Falls, New York. But every time for whatever NHL Tonight or whatever it was, they were in studio in Bristol. So there's a reason people keep coming back.
I think ESPN's going to continue with it. So, speaking of wagering, without any further ado, the moment a lot of our fans have been waiting for, the debut of Mr. Soriano to the show. Hello, sir, and
good evening.
Welcome
gentlemen.
to the show.
Welcome, Matthew.
There's your theme song.
Something wrong with? Are you playing it just in your headphones?
Yeah, I apparently it doesn't play on my. Wait, I think I can do it.
Quite the operation you're going on there.
I'm telling you.
It's a good thing you're there to help him, Dan.
I'm in Massachusetts, man. I can't help it.
So look at this. Probably our most commented watcher.
I got to derail for a second because Steve was so good, and it just touched my heart as he was talking about horse racing.
Did you feel he's a protege? Like you could train, you can work with this kid?
Well, when I was doing the math on when he graduated college, I was worried about that he was actually my kid. But he's talking about how great the Meadowlands is. And for anyone who's from the New York metro area, there's amazing horse tracks there. The Meadowlands, I think, kind of gets a little bit underrated because the Belmont is like the crown jewel.
Oh,
Aqueduct.
Saratoga.
What's that?
Saratoga.
Saratoga's in Albany, though. I mean, we're talking about like in the tri-state area.
I got to tell you, hold on, just so you know, to work with your ego. I'm sorry to interrupt your story, but right before you got on, we had 4 viewers watching. We have skyrocketed to 9.
Hey, that's 125% increase.
Right, like the NASCAR ratings. 4 people watching and 9.
So the Meadowlands, you sit up in the club instead of in the grandstand. And you got a beautiful view of New York City skyline. And like Dan said, you could bet all day long. But when he talked about how he doesn't smoke, I kind of felt like he told me like he was breaking up with me or something. And, we've talked about, for people that don't know what OTB is, it stands for off-track betting. We've talked about this, what OTB is like in New York. And one of my oldest, fondest memories, I can do math, thank you, Doobie. One of my oldest, fondest memories was going to OTB with my pop. And for anyone who smokes cigars, when you get down to the nub and it's all chewy, when you're like waist high on your father's hip, when these old men are standing on line for their bets, you're about hip high with where they're holding their nub. And so you're getting that saliva and smoke smell right in your face. And it's just, for a 4-year-old kid, it doesn't get any better than to see just the top of society betting on horses on a Saturday morning with half smoked, half chewed cigars. It really doesn't set a better example for you. And honestly, I can't, that smell will never leave me. So
it's amazing.
Bubby, it's good to see you, Mush.
It's good to see you.
It's always good to see you, Diamond.
So we have brought you on with a specific purpose.
Sorry, guys.
Here.
It was a long first segment, so
it's okay. What else do we want to talk about but Vegas, right? So
sure.
There may be people planning their first trip back to Vegas in the COVID era. There may be a couple of people who have already booked their first trip back to Vegas in the COVID era. I have no idea who people are. Who would do such a thing? Why would you do that? Oh, it's terrible. It's a stupid thing to do. Yeah, those people are ridiculous.
Yes.
So what we need to know is you're a quintessential. We always said, like, you'd be a great travel author, but specifically Vegas, we go there and you're like Rain Man. It's like all comes back to you, and it's ridiculous. It really is. It's one of a kind. So we brought you on here. We want to talk a little bit about what to expect Vegas in the COVID era. Whether we like it or not, it's here. It's real, and we have to play within these new guidelines to keep Vegas open. So I'm going to give you the floor for a little bit. Talk about some of the research you've done and maybe some of the things you've learned that we need to get ready for if you want to go to Vegas now. So bring us, what do you got? What'd you find out? I gave you the job. Let's see what you did.
Well, I'm going to say I like it. So, Mush, you and I have been going to Vegas by the way. You should probably change your banner so people know who I'm talking about.
I'm
Jason.
good. I was actually about to.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, not Diamond Dan. He's actually good luck.
What did you want me to put up? I don't know.
Mush.
Anyway.
So in the 17 years I've been going to Vegas, almost 18, I hate crowds. Never go on a weekend. I think I probably only got on a weekend maybe once or twice. It's amateur hour. Too many people. You're asshole to elbow everywhere you go. You can't get in anywhere, and it's just packed everywhere. Thanks to the coronavirus, it's a Monday every day. The hotels, the ones that are open, are only booking to maximum of 50% capacity. In fact, I read that the Bellagio is only at about 25% maximum bookings right now.
Really?
So, yeah. So, and actually, my father pointed this out, and it's true. When you go down the main walkway of Bellagio's casino, it's a traffic way. It's a very free-flowing casino. The main blackjack corridor is wide open. It's just people walking through. It's not a place where you can go and sit and really have the casino to yourself. So
it feels more like a shopping mall, like a crowded shopping mall on a Saturday.
It's really like an airport terminal.
Yeah.
Because it's a destination.
Mm-hmm.
So right off the bat, unless people are local or passing through town or just going for the day, they're not going to be in the casino because the hotels are only at, if there's 7,000 rooms, they're only at like 3,500.
Mm-hmm.
As on the casino floor, you're basically in the same situation. Blackjack is down to 3 players maximum, which is phenomenal. It's going to weed out the amateurs because the pros are going to get in there and elbow their way in.
And you're not going to be brushing up against someone.
That's right. There's really nothing worse than, the people that are like, their wife comes in or their husband comes in and they want to hang all over each other because there's not another chair. They sit on each other's lap.
What about your friend that's bad luck?
Yeah, or you, which is even worse. This is good because now I got a physical barrier between you and I. And that's the other part. There's barriers now in between the players. It's like basically they've turned the casino tables into like a Western Union. It's like a check cashing place. So
kind of weird. That is kind of weird. I don't know.
Well, I don't think this is a permanent fix. I think this is just going to be until there is an inoculation or some sort of cure for the virus. But I think in the meantime, it's going to be like you're elbowing up to the salad bar here, and you got a sneeze guard. Your cash goes under. Unless you're playing a pitch game of blackjack or pie gow or something like that, you're not touching the cards anyway. So you really have no reason to do anything other than slide your checks underneath the glass. And they're offering hand sanitizer in between each hand. So they got blackjack down to a science. Roulette, who really cares? Hey, there's a nice background you got there. You should really kind of shift yourself over there.
Yeah,
I can't.
Really
I've been playing with this the whole time. No, I got that too. That's coming.
So, roulette, same thing. They're cutting the table down. Craps.
Oh, wait, it's so funny.
There you go.
Oh, it's creepy.
Craps, a 10-foot plus craps table. If it's a hot table, there could be 30, 40 people on that, just elbowed in there. And it's like the worst experience. People, because there's no set positions, people will just get one arm in, throw their checks down, and they just want to get in on the action. It's 6 players, 3 to a side. That's it.
For craps, it does no harm. There's no change in the game because the craps is the same game whether you play with 2 people or 12 people, right?
That's right.
Now, blackjack, you can make an argument it changes, but if you're not going drastic during it's three. The thing about blackjack is if you got people going in and out, 2-5, 2-5, 6-3, it could really screw you up. But if it's just going to be 3 the whole time, who cares?
That's right. That is true. And, I think the case could be made that it will stretch a single deck game a little bit further.
Mm-hmm. So, a lot of shuffling in single deck.
That's right. So if you like to go to, say, I don't know, the El Cortez.
Why wouldn't you like to do old school?
Fantastic place. By the way, for those of you like me who like to smoke, they do have ashtrays on top of the men's urinals for convenience.
Just watch when you ash that. Make sure you hit the tray.
Right. Make sure you hit the tray. You're going to be able to play that pitch game for a little bit longer. So slot machines, there's a couple things they're doing. They're taking chairs out and they're putting placards over the machines. I have a speculation on this, and that is the reason why they're doing the placards is so that they could rotate the machines each day just to keep them fresh.
Yeah, because you can. It's people are very weird about how that works.
Right. There's going to be no sitting next to each other. There's also going to be no lingering. So they are actually purposely removing chairs, both from the tables and from the machines. Very disappointing thing that I noticed. I did not know this until I did my research. Valet parking temporarily suspended.
Oh, you're going to be angry. I guess they don't want some guy coughing on your steering wheel.
I don't care about that.
I don't care either. I don't want to walk. Here's the thing. Some hotels, it's
miles away.
Which one would be the worst? Which one if South Park, when we go, I mean, when those two guys go, or whoever, I didn't mean that.
I could tell you from experience.
Which one is it going to be bad to South Park and walk to the casino?
I self-parked at Caesar's Palace. I want to say it was like 2015.
Caesar's property is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it was horrible. Now, Park MGM and New York, because the T-Mobile Arena is right there, you have the parking garage right at the arena. You can go in the side doors of New York into the casino, or the taxi entrance of Park MGM actually happens to be right next to the garage. So it's not terrible, but from an economic standpoint, it's one of the most valuable jobs to have on the Strip. So now self-parking is free, but it's got to be miserable, especially when, you've had a long day. You don't want to be walking all the way out there to get your car. So it's definitely something that's suspended for right now. Casinos, any guest that's checking in, you're getting the temperature check, the MGM Players Club, I have the app. I may have made a test reservation for a room just to see how it went.
For research, you got to see what they were going to do for check-in, like mobile check-in. Is that a thing? Like, do you have
mobile
check-in? Can you not go to the desk?
You could avoid the desk. MGM is almost all electronic check-in anyway at kiosks, similar to an airport. A lot of the MGM properties have gone to mobile keys, so your mobile phone uses a key. But they're asking you health questions on the app. So, but they're also checking your temperature when you get in. They're using a strip. It's not the old-fashioned way, even if you ask for it.
I figured that they would if you asked for it.
No, I have confirmation on that.
Okay.
So you've got to go through that whole health check. On the higher end MGM properties, they're giving you amenity kits with all sorts of different, hand sanitizers and all that stuff. All casinos have stands on each entrance, masks, gloves, sanitizers. It's going to be all over every table. I think you're going to have an easier time getting that than getting a drink from a cocktail waitress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
masks are not mandatory for guests, but they are going to be mandatory for all staff.
So all of that sounds like you'll be able to do much of what you like to do with more space, and I'll never argue with that. The one casualty right now that it's kind of sad is we're looking at no buffets, right?
So far, from what I could tell, no buffets. Most restaurants are open. There's still some that aren't open. And, the two big companies, if anybody's never been to Vegas, one side of the strip for the most part is owned by MGM, and one side of the strip for the most part is owned by Caesars. They're kind of staggering their openings. The Bellagio and Wynn and Caesar's Palace, and some of the bigger properties were open day one, and now they're starting to add on the Link and the Cromwell, and the park will be open next week. So they're staggering the openings up to July 4th week, just to kind of see how it goes. Couple of things that I saw, just comments from people, boat rentals and access to Lake Mead. Some of the proprietors there said the volume has not been this high since before the Great Recession in 2008. I guess, people get locked up for a few months and they got to get out. I can certainly relate.
No better way to social distance than on a boat.
No, get out on the lake, right? And, the first night, if anybody saw the news, people were ready to break down the doors.
Yeah. Looks like Black Friday at Walmart.
Absolutely.
People are ready to go, which brings me to what I'd like to ask you. What's your perfect day in Vegas?
One I could remember.
That's a good answer.
Sun up until sun up.
Oh.
What's that day look like?
Wow.
There are drinks at Frankie's Tiki Hut somewhere in the middle of this.
This is true. And there's definitely a lot of drinks involved. As you know, I'm an early riser. There was a time for those of you listening on your transistors in your bedroom, Mush and I have been going to Vegas together since 2003. I've only been able to get Diamond Dan on one trip in 2010. I've got a sharp mind here. I could tell you almost everything about that trip. How, I don't remember, but I can. 17 years ago, Jay-Z did not like getting up early. So there were plenty of mornings where I was already a couple drinks in and sitting by the pool.
A couple drinks and a couple hundred lighter, and I was still sleeping.
A couple hundred lighter, sitting by the pool getting some sun while you were shaking the cobwebs. So I like to be up and out of the room by 7:30. It's kind of almost scientific to watch the city kind of come to life. It's a machine, and it's a beast, and it's kind of like one of those wonders of the world. It's really everything and anything you want it to be. How that city runs, and we're all New Yorkers, and it's amazing how New York runs. And it's amazing how Vegas runs, but in a completely different way, because it really is built on the surface of the sun. Except for going there in January. I don't think I've ever gone there and not been, holy Christ, it's hot as hell.
Why do we always go in the summer? We never do go in January. I've never figured that out.
Last year we went in October, and it was
still hot,
reasonable, but it was still hot.
One of the going back to the beginning, one of the good parts from a gambler's perspective, I guess, maybe not on the economy side, is that there are no trade shows taking place in Vegas right now. And a lot of those, the big ones, are in January, November, February. So they stack it in while everybody's there, and then that makes it even worse.
Well, those are the idiot gamblers show up.
Well, that's the guy that's waiting for his flight, who decides to start placing bets on the Super Bowl for all his buddies before he flies home on the red eye back to the the real East Coast. None of those dopes are going to be around in their first trip to Vegas or whatever. Oh, I've been here 30 times, whatever. That's not going to be happening for the foreseeable future.
Well, as bad as those guys are, nothing's worse than the kid who, he looks at the table for about 10 minutes. And he pulls out his wallet, and he pulls out a 10 on a $5 table. He tries to hand it to the dealer for about 10 minutes. And then there's the ID check. Yeah.
Kills you.
Then he tries to hand the check. It's like, get the hell out of here, please.
That's what the El Cortez is for.
So right.
No,
you know what that's for? A trip with your good friend Mrs. Soriano to Aruba, where he could teach you how to gamble there, so you're not an idiot the first time you go to Vegas. That's what you do. Thank you.
And that's
Thank
it.
you.
That's what cruise ships are for.
Yeah.
And all these other places.
Also, what we realized, what you learned, but I learned by watching you. If you ever have a thought in your head to bet on something, and you so much as say it, like, "Oh, I should put this $25 on Black 28," and you don't do it, shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
Yeah, you can't bet scared. That is for sure. So my ideal trip, you get up early, you get some coffee, shake off the cobwebs, because inevitably, and there's unfortunately photographic evidence of this. Really, from the time I get there to the time I leave, it's really just all one big fog. But you got to rally in the morning. Get some coffee, usually some sort of breakfast, and get the blood flowing. Get some vitamin D. Pick a part of the strip that you want to attack, or downtown, and hit the games. Most of the time, I will tell you, I will like to get some sun in, get some pool time, kill some of the morning, get rejuvenated. It's definitely a good place to get in the water and relax a little bit. But come noon, you got to start looking at, okay, let's get into a craps table before it's crowded. Let's get into a blackjack table. And honestly, I'm there to gamble. That's how I relax. To me, it's not a chore. It's really like, I think for some people it's stressful. For me, it's just the opposite. Whatever money I'm walking in the casino with, I'm expecting to lose. I expect to never see it again. So if I lose it, I lose it. But if I win, that's fantastic, and it's a great rush. So let's go in and have some fun.
Let me ask you, you're playing craps, you're feeling good. What's your drink of choice?
Casino bartenders are not going to make an old-fashioned really good. It's probably going to be like Jack and Ginger, or like Scotch on the rocks. Depending on, like, if I'm in the El Cortez, it's going to be something mixed, so I don't have to have my spleen taken out.
You don't need a tetanus shot when you leave.
The beer lines, the El Cortez have got to be clean. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. It's like, why is this Coors Light chunky? But
I love that place.
And that's just it. And I'll go back to the trip that the three of us were on, and we went to, what's now the Cromwell was the Barbary Coast at the time. And Barbary Coast was like a downtown casino on the Strip. And the ceiling was just over our heads.
Yeah.
And every stool had a cigarette hole in it.
Yes, it did.
And the place just reeked of, foreclosures and sorrow, broken dreams. And it was like $2 craps. And by the way, now that place has been renovated, it still has the best odds on craps in Las Vegas. I think it's 100 times odds.
It's also a beautiful. They did a great job.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I shouldn't read out the comments, but I want to adopt Steven Conway, by the way, not for tax purposes.
Great.
So
he wasn't kidding about the colored pants either. Yikes.
No, well, I have shorts that color.
Oh,
so.
he goes to Martha's Vineyard a lot.
I live in since I have 3 pair of them.
I have shorts that color. I have shorts that
color.
color. I do too.
In fact, I just bought 2 shirts that color too.
And you have a fedora. So you're good.
I have several fedoras.
See, there you go.
I'm sitting here pounding on my counter while Dan's ragging on him.
Where are we with our Vegas? I don't. Okay.
We've made it to noon.
Yeah. So I'm drunk and it's noon. You'll probably gamble till like 5 o'clock.
Yeah. We do more day gambling now that we're older, I've realized.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I don't know,
Definitely.
but
Or the real late night, like as a trade show junkie.
Oh.
On the job for so many, like as soon as your dinner's over, it's 11 o'clock at night, and you're in the first Uber you can to the El Cortez or down to the Nugget.
I love the Nugget. The Nugget's beautiful.
The late night. I haven't had one in a while, but the 3 to 4 to 5 a.m. Vegas moment is really wild.
My 40th birthday at Cosmopolitan, we did pretty good. And this
You
goes
remember?
Drips and drabs. What this goes back to not having a lot of people in there. They have a section right on the strip off to one side in Cosmopolitan. Nobody seems to know it's there. And it was just me and, the unlucky rabbit's foot at the table the whole friggin' weekend. So
Now the secret's out.
yeah.
No, you
Don't
got
go
to
to
find it. He didn't say where it
Don't go to
was.
the Cosmopolitan. It's horrible.
They're not nice at all. It sucks.
Actually, the dealer was pissed that I was smoking at the table.
Oh,
which is
that one. But that
ridiculous,
was only one. The rest of them were cool.
because if
Here's
there's
for a non-smoking room, honestly.
She had asthma, and it was like maybe
No,
she had maybe she had COVID.
2018,
You know what?
it hadn't been genetically modified in a lab yet. The point is that there's one place in the 50 states you could smoke indoors, and I take full advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean everywhere.
So usually, ideal, you're in Vegas, you got to go for a good steak, kill yourself a good porterhouse and a few scotches, and then try and, when you're almost 42 years old, try and get yourself out of the restaurant if you're, a little drunk and without hitting a wall. And then do the afternoon all over again. Just hit
All
those.
right. Listen, it's 2:00 in the morning now. Where do you want to go to eat? Cap off your night.
So you're talking, am I drunk?
Oh, yeah. Why would you be sober? Duh.
Am I doing anything else?
Probably. Well, dude, Crack Shack was good. That's the new late night.
Crack Shack
spot.
was good.
That was really good.
That's when you go play roulette at Harrah's and go home.
Oh, God.
I mean, honestly, I'd probably
White Castle?
I'd probably pick out like a 10-pack of cheeseburgers and go to and go to one of the shitty casinos on the strip. And so do you want to tell the story?
I was gonna say no. I was gonna say okay. Crack Shack, White Castle, or cupcakes from an ATM.
So the cupcake ATM is gone, but
oh, that's good. Actually.
I have been known to miserate upon myself around that hour.
There should be no. In fairness to you, there's some spots if you're not in a hotel and you're walking in Vegas outdoors. Restrooms are not easy to find. You have to go in a casino and then you have to walk through a casino to get to a restroom. So
take it from off the mat.
They're not
pass up the
plentiful.
bathroom.
The what?
I said, don't pass up a bathroom.
Right.
Listen, I would have gone if the Metro cops hadn't been there.
No, but they're not easy to find if you're on the street in Vegas. That's all I'm gonna say for you. So Crack Shack was good, but I agree. I think White Castle. Dan, do you have if it's 2:00 in Vegas, there is Denny's, but I'd like to live.
I feel like you just kind of take what you can get at that point. If you're heading back towards the hotel, you just sort of find what there is. I mean, you could go to In-N-Out and stand in line, I guess, but then you got to get a ride back to the other side.
And there'll be a line.
Every hotel's got like a 24-hour diner, and now all of them have 24-hour dumpling shops, which does sound really good.
Does sound really good.
Like for work, I've spent a lot of time in the Venetian, and that Grand Lux is right there, and there's a bar right before the elevator. I mean, if you need a burger before you hit bed, I mean, there it is. And there's a coffee bean on the second floor on the whatever strip side there. So you could always get hit that in the morning, shake off the cobwebs, like you say, and get right back at it.
Shake Shack's open late in New York, New York.
It is. So, Mr. Soriano, favorite place to play, favorite place to stay. And I guess we could say current because Vegas is ever evolving. I've had like 4 different favorite places. Well, no, let's go. Favorite all time, favorite current.
Okay. I will say favorite all time and current as far as stay are the same, and that's Cosmopolitan.
And that's recent, but
yeah, I have stayed at, I'd say, a good 75 to 80% of the strip properties. And I'll include the Hard Rock as a strip property and the one that hosted the Real World. Slipping my old
the Palms. We stayed for like a night. I flooded the bathroom, with the shower.
2 nights, and if we talked about all the hotels where you flooded a bathroom, it would be all those properties.
They took us out. We wouldn't be allowed back.
Stayed at Rio. I would say the Cosmopolitan. I've stayed in both a regular room and a suite. The hotel, from the service to the pools to the rooms, it's just unbelievably first class. I have a colleague who hates Las Vegas, but he goes there just to stay there. I think they blow it out of the water.
The thing is, it's not. I like it when it's not a mega resort. It's a perfect size, and that's why I liked Hard Rock at the time. When we were a little younger, we fit in a little better. But what used to be the Hard Rock now, unfortunately, it's no longer open. But it's a perfect size, and you feel like you're not. You also feel like you're a customer. You're not like one of a bazillion people staying there.
Well, and the age, the target age range, and we're all around close to the same age. But you're not dealing with the mega young, the mega old. It's a good demographic, so you don't really feel out of place. You don't see a million scooters or strollers going back and forth.
Very true.
Whereas, I think before I stayed there for the first time, the last time before that, I had stayed at the Hard Rock. It was like a year before my daughter was born, and my wife and I had a pool front room during rehab, and we wanted to blow our brains out. It was just, and we were in our mid-30s. We weren't that old. It's just, it's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Favorite
place?
But
back at our big Hard Rock trip, like our first big Vegas trip, we were the perfect age for it, the Hard Rock at the time, and it was a lot of fun. You know, it's one of those places you hit the right sweet spot. It's a lot of fun, and then you go back 5 years later, and you're like, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah, I was 24 at the time, and it was like the place to go. I mean, that's back when, I hate to use him as a reference, but like Ben Affleck used to hang out there to play cards, and
Shepard Smith.
Chef Smith. We were playing blackjack with Chef Smith.
Asked me where to obtain illegal items and people
and young ladies.
Yes.
But it was a place to. It was one of the places to go, along with the Palms at the time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a twist on places to play. I'm gonna say Strip in downtown.
Okay.
Because downtown, I'm gonna say the D. Not the D, the Downtown Grand. Played there for the first time my last trip, and they're really doing a lot downtown. The El Cortez and the Four Queens always have a big place in my heart. They're all fantastic old resorts. I'm looking over to my left here, and there's a picture of my grandfather sitting in a slot machine at Lady Luck, which I believe is now the Downtown Grand. It's kind of what they're trying to make it into. And, this younger developer is pouring tons of cash into it. And it's a great property. But the casino itself is a lot of fun. Strip, that's a tough one. Cosmopolitan's got a great casino with a great vibe. Mirage has got a great casino. And I really liked playing at Park MGM last time we were there. Because they're so close to the arena.
If there's something going on next door, it's hopping.
Yeah. And, even though they don't have a great sports book, it's got a kind of a good vibe. The table minimums aren't out of whack. for being so close to the arena and housing both Lady Gaga and Aerosmith as their house acts. So you would think that they would be able to command a really high minimum, but they've got all the games. The drink service is fantastic. The dealers are really, a good dealer can make or break a game.
Yeah.
I will sit and lose with a dealer I enjoy playing with longer than win with a guy or a woman who's just a hump.
And that's been Cosmopolitan and Hard Rock. I've had the best dealers to me by far. Even when we stopped by the Hard Rock on our last trip, that we ran into only very personable dealers, and it was a lot of fun. I'll tell you the worst places, the least fun, MGM Grand and Caesars. I think it's just the size of the place. It's out of control, and they're very impersonal.
One caveat to that, and again, you were with me. Caesars Swim Up Blackjack is fantastic. Yeah. If you've never played it, it's a great way to get drunk, swim, and play blackjack all at the same time. You don't have to leave the water, play with wet money, and the dealers, because it's kind of a party atmosphere, have a little bit more fun. But their casino is stuffy. I agree with you, and MGM Grand too. It's corporate. I'm not there for that.
Diamond, when was your last trip?
To Vegas would have been not this January, but last January.
Yeah, you're due. You're definitely due. Well, goodness gracious.
That's worthy of going again. I'm just saying.
No, it really is. It really is. Hopefully things continue to improve out there. We know the economy for Vegas is based on the tourism industry. If there's nothing going on, the town goes bankrupt. And we really hope it doesn't happen and things are on the upswing. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing firsthand how these changes affect the experience. And if we go, we'll have maybe a show so we can explain that to everybody.
I will be happy to do some research. If I could just submit my receipts.
That's Seth Cantor at gmail.com.
I am a little upset that Sethy's not on today. I love you boys. I was looking forward to seeing Seth, but if Seth's willing to pick up the tab on my expenses, I'll be happy to do a
we'll check it out. He's the one with the card. So on this show, we like to wrap up with this day in sports rundown. So I pulled couple of interesting items. So we're going to start in 1898. How old were you back then? 1898. The 23rd Preakness. Willie Sims riding Sly Fox wins in 1 minute, 49 seconds.
My grandfather wanted to be a jockey. He was like 5'3" and about 120 pounds, and he was still too big.
It's hard. Well, I'm sure you remember this 23rd Preakness. In 1938, Cincinnati Red Johnny Vandermeer no-hits the Boston Braves 3-0. Now, didn't Vandermeer have the back-to-back no-hitters? Isn't he the only guy to have back-to-back no-hitters?
You asking me because I was there?
No, right? Johnny Vandermeer is the only guy in baseball history to have the back-to-back no-hitters. I'm curious if this is one of them. That's why I pulled it, but clearly I didn't do enough homework on it. Well, in 1961, Roger Maris hits his 19th and 20th home runs of a 61 home run campaign. I'm sure that makes you feel a certain way, Mr. Soriano. Yeah, I figured. 1982, Larry Holmes TKOs Jerry Cooney in 13 rounds for heavyweight boxing title. Larry Holmes was a tough man.
Yeah. 13 rounds, man.
13-round boxing action. So if
He's
Tyson,
no Iron Mike.
I had heard some stuff like Tyson, whatever they come up with that, it might be like a 3-4 rounder or something like that. Would you buy, I don't know if they're not going to do Tyson and like anyone. What do you think, Dan? I mean, you're a big boxing guy. Like, what do you think that they could do with Tyson?
Oh, I mean, you could bring out somebody, who's blown a title shot, who's been in an eliminator, a heavyweight, depending on where Tyson weighs in. But I mean,
how about your boy?
Kanowski. Adam's got a long road to hoe now that he lost that fight against
you know what happened? I met him, and then he loses his next fight. That's what it was.
I mean, it was like I could have scripted it because, I was watching the fight with Katie because it was on cable, of course. And he got hit on the side of the head, and I was like, forget it, it's done. And Adam's a neighborhood guy from Greenpoint. He lives, I think, in Bayshore now or something like that. And he's a Polish immigrant. He's a great story, but I mean, he got knocked down by a guy that they literally brought in for him to beat, on his way to fighting Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua or something like that. And when you're the 8th ranked heavyweight in the world, which these days is a little thin, and you get knocked out on fucking cable TV, that's bad.
I got a proposition for you. Mike Tyson Fury, 5 rounds.
Tyson versus Tyson.
Tyson, 5 rounds.
I think, depending on
who says no?
I don't. I mean, Fury would just knock him out.
Do you think so?
I do. I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm sure Tyson's in great fighting shape for his age, but I mean, Tyson Fury is the heavyweight champion of the world. The guy's a fucking animal.
You know what? Even if he does, even if that's the case, Dan, though, what kind of money that? Could you imagine the money that brings in?
I can. He whipped Deontay Wilder around the ring. We all watched that, and it wasn't even close. Like all.
So let's just do Tyson Holyfield.
I bet you Evander's in great shape too. But would they fight again? And could he bite off his?
That's probably got to be 3 rounds. I can't even. Yeah, I can't even see that going 5. Speaking of tough guys, 1990, Nolan Ryan pitches his 6th no-hitter, beating Oakland in the 9th. In the 9th, he retires Ken Phelps, Ricky Henderson, and Willie Randolph, all ex-Yankees.
Hey, I got a question about Nolan Ryan.
Good story. Yeah.
Who did he win his only ring with?
The New York Mets.
Thank you. I got another question. How much money would it take for you to get in the ring and let Tyson just beat the shit out of you?
I wouldn't. It would take one punch. I mean, look, if the guy.
No, but how? Like, what's the minimum amount of money you would take from you?
Well, depends on what my hospital bills would be, but.
Yeah, he's going to cover that.
You're covered. You're covered. Forget that. I'm talking about cold hard cash.
$1 million?
Walkaway money.
I'll take $1 million.
Pound for pound, he's got to be one of the hardest punchers that ever played.
I can imagine it's like getting hit by a car.
My face is whatever. I don't really care. $1 million?
But that's what they say about Canelo Alvarez, right? Is that pound for pound, he hits harder than needs a tactician. I mean, Tyson would just come at you and knock you unconscious, and who knows? Drago.
I must break you.
You're holding your microphone like you're Bob Barker.
No, it's like you work at fucking ShopRite. What's wrong?
Clean up aisle 5. Clean up aisle 5.
This is what I do when I start getting punchy on video calls at work.
And the last one is kind of crappy. 2017 Stanley Cup Final in the Bridgestone Arena, Nashville. What a great place to see a hockey game or visit. Nashville's outstanding. Pittsburgh Penguins defeat the Predators 2-0. 4-2 series win. The Penguins won back-to-back championships. That's today's.
Derek Brassard won his ring.
Derek Brassard. It's terrible. It's awful. This has been fun.
Yeah.
It's a good day. This is normally where we tease next week. I have no idea what Seth is coming up with. I'm sure it'll be good. It'll be hard to top Mr. Soriano and Stevie. He was great. How do you top a gambling show? What topics better than gambling and sports and Vegas?
I bet you can't.
It's hard. It's hard to do it. I just want to make sure nothing broke on the baseball front before we go. Because last week, right when we were ready to sign off, we had a lot of baseball news frickin' come across. But Jeff Passan's only tweeting about the the draft, or nothing today, actually.
Oh, the baseball draft and the
I didn't even know that was going. Who cares?
The Yankees have 17 catchers. They just let one go.
Yeah. No, it's apparently this guy's got a hell of a stick, though. So we'll see. Oh, he got Scott Boras today as his agent. So.
Oh, of course.
He's not going to sign for anything less than $12 million rookie contract. All right. So week ahead, we have a NASCAR race, Homestead, Sunday. You can bet on a lot of soccer, right, Dan? You can do soccer.
Soccer is next weekend. I mean, you can get Bundesliga, German soccer. I don't think it's as relatable as the English Premier League is, just because they don't speak English.
So English Premier is next week.
Not this weekend. Next weekend.
Okay, and we have golf. Is that right?
There's golf. There is live golf this weekend. I forget where it is, but it's somewhere.
Are we getting Tiger on this thing? Is he in this?
No, Tiger. But Rory, I think, is in the he's in the entry list, and
okay.
You could always just play the lottery if you're really up for it. All
you need is a dollar and a dream.
That's it.
That's it. That's right. You got to be in it to win it. That's what my grandfather used to say. So Mrs. Soriano is running out of his drink, so he needs to get a refill.
Highly recommend a glass of scotch to end your day.
That's never a bad choice. Thanks for joining us tonight to get us ready for the Vegas restart and all other things involving Vegas. Diamond Dan, see you back here next week.
I've been reminded by Mr. Conway, do not forget there is horse racing. There's live horse racing this weekend. So get your apps ready. You can bet all the races there at Belmont. Beautiful facility. No fans, of course, but you can still, and I'm sure that it will be on FS1, or you can watch the races right through the app. Again, this is not an advertisement for New York Racing Authority or Association, but you can get your fix, and I guarantee you there's racing elsewhere in the country.
Get that trifecta in.
That's right. So
that Super is calling your name.
We got to warm it up for the fall Triple Crown now.
That's right. And you're getting. I mean, on that point, not to. I know Jason wants to go and smoke something or whatever, but
on the meat smoker thing.
Now that the races are sort of out of order, you're getting some Kentucky Derby defections. It's not like a great sign, but these lead up races have been very entertaining. I think we'll still have something to watch, and there will be build up for it. And of course, NBC wants to cash in on it.
So the Derby is September 15th. The Preakness is October 3rd. When's the Belmont?
I feel like it's before both of them. The Belmont's going first.
Call me a New Yorker, but I think the Belmont's the most fun because it is the longest.
Right.
And if you've got 2 wins beforehand, it's got to go last because it's the hardest one. If you got 2 wins beforehand, you're hoping for the Triple Crown. And it's this beautiful track in the middle of the city. I mean, how can you not love it?
But I mean, it's horse racing stuff is test, right? Like you said, it's a mile. That's right. It's a long way around, all the way around, and in half the front stretch. I feel like it, and the horses. Oh wow, it's in 2 weeks. Is that no? Wow. Well, okay.
Wait, what do you need? What do you need a date on the Belmont? What did you say?
Yeah. You got scooped, Mush.
Well, he says in 2 weeks he believes. So,
Steve, do you want to go together?
You can stay in the LIRR station.
Yep, June 20th.
Is that? I didn't know that. I guess I did know that. I forgot. Well, that's going to be interesting. So it'll be interesting to see how many horses it gets. Some of the horses that are primed to run the Derby won't. Think about how many horses have won the first 2 stages of the Triple Crown and can't finish.
You guys are going to have a special.
We should. We might have to bring Mr. Conway back.
Horse racing special, yeah.
Here you go. He says he'll bring. If you bring the cigars, he's in. You guys can stand at the.
Look what you started.
I do not travel anywhere without my Romeos, so he's in. He is lucky.
Yeah,
Mrs. Soriano can attest to that. She very begrudgingly knows that I take these along.
What's interesting about this, though, is that if you have a horse that can win the Belmont that goes first, right? I mean, that's the true test of horse racing, right? In America, is that if you can run the long race, you can run the short ones. and that's why it goes last. American Pharaoh, California Chrome, Secretary, whatever, I mean, Funny Side couldn't do it, and that's a New York bred horse that blew away the field, right, and then couldn't win, at Belmont because the race was just too long, and they bitch about, the owners and the trainers bitch about how long it is. But if you do the long road first, I mean, it'll be interesting to see whoever wins the Belmont. It should be a cakewalk, right? That will be this will be the asterisk in horse racing forever, is that if you win the Belmont and then you go on to win the next two, does that really count? Because, racing stuff is test, went first.
Well, and theoretically, you should have favorable weather in the fall in Kentucky and in Maryland.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no bullshit thunderstorms.
Yeah. Not racing in mud.
Humanity, exactly. Yeah, how many of the last 3 or 4 practices with all those crazy people in the infield? It's pouring down rain.
You couldn't see them coming around the last turn.
Right.
So,
I don't know. All right, so next week we'll have to do an EPL special and do the Belmont.
Seriously, might have to have an emergency Belmont pod. My God.
I also volunteer to do a local at Santa Anita once that opens.
What's the timeline on that?
I don't know. I'll have to look that up or just move there.
Yeah. Great neighborhood.
Oh, well, it's got a nice view.
It's got a great airport.
Truth.
Jason's frozen.
He is. I want to take a picture of that.
Do it before we. I can't even sign off because he's got the thing. Oh man! Look at this. Wait, I'm point the other way.
This is epic mush.
I know, right? Like, great. Oh, now he's gone.
He's probably watching. He just texted me.
Oh, he is.
His internet's out.
Here is it? Oh no. He said, "Oh wait, did he quit?" Oh, he's all right. Well, there you go.
Walked off the show.
All right. Well, we should probably stop. So thanks everybody for tuning in today. Your real host will be back next week. Goodbye, Matthew.
Goodbye, Dan. Good seeing you.
Always a pleasure.
Always.